Hello YouTubers, you're watching Just Do It Yourself channel and we are replacing axle on the 2010 Volvo C30. So as you can see, this boot is all cracked and throwing grease all over the place. I just did the belts, so I have removed the fender liner and it's a quick job to do. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, and 1, 2, 3 screws, and then 2 nuts. It comes off and it gives you lots of room to work with. So don't be too lazy to remove that, it will help you a lot. So next, what we'll do, we'll get under the vehicle and remove this plastic shield. It's just C30 screws underneath along the perimeter, so we'll get that removed. I'm under the vehicle right now, so here's the transaxle or transmission, and here's the axle, and there's a support bracket. As you can see, those are 10mm bolts that hold it in place over here. So we will get those two removed, and I will just try using the impact and a swivel. Not sure if it will be able to do this. This is just ½ inch, oh actually quarter-inch impact. Not really. So I might need to get it loose with the ratchet and then use the impact to get them out. So those bolts are out. So as long as you crack them a bit with the ratchet, then you can use impact and a swivel to get them out. So I'll just remove that bracket that holds bearing in place. Now the axle should be quite loose in there. Okay, let's get out here. Next we'll undo the axle nut, and that's 13mm. See, and those bolts are easy to break, so make sure that you are turning it right direction. So now we will use just 15mm socket and we'll push that axle out of the hub as much as it goes. To get the axle out, we need to free up the hub some way. I tried without removing extra suspension parts, it does not work. So obviously we can remove the ball joint and it should give us enough leverage, but I would like to try the tie rod first, since it's way more easier to remove and put it back. So maybe it will give us just enough room so we can spin the hub any direction, so the axle will come out. So to get the tie rod out, just grab a good sledgehammer and tap it from the side. If it doesn't work, you can probably put the nut back and tap it from the top too. Just try not to damage the tie rod thread and the nut. So removing the tie rod did not really help. So the axle still doesn't come out. So I guess we have to remove the ball joint, and it's 21mm nut. There is no room for the socket and impact, so I'll just use wrench to get it out. So now the nut on the ball joint is loose. I'll just have screwed it back a bit, so when we hammer we don't damage the thread. So same thing as with the tie rod, you want to go against this hub piece, few good slams and it should fall down. So after a few good slams, you will see that it kind of breaks loose, but it doesn't fall down, it just holds on those rubber bushings. But if we push it down, you can see that it's loose now, so we can remove the knot and we'll get the ball joint out. So now when the hub is loose, we'll try to push that axle out, just like that, and put it aside, and guess what? This way bar link is broke. So be careful with that, not to damage that. When you spin your, probably was getting ready to fall apart, but would have lasted another couple of months, would be my guess. So now we can try to pull this out of the transaxle. Here you go. So here is the old and new axle, and I will leave a link in the description. I ordered it online, it wasn't too expensive. It comes with the new bearing, new boots, so it's good value for that price. One thing that you want to do before you put the new one in, you want to put them side by side and make sure that they are the same size. I had one case when the axle was like 1 inch shorter and it was keep coming off the transaxle out of the transmission all the time. So make sure that those dimensions where it says here, those are all the same. And this looks good to me. So before we put this into the transmission, we will lubricate this with some gear oil that will help us to get in with less effort. Now, before we install the new axle, we will clean all this grease, so when the new axle is in, everything is nice and clean. I got the axle in. It went in as easy as it came out, since there is no C ring at the end. So just to make sure that it's in the right place, basically your bearing, just try to focus. So where the bearing sits, there is that lip on the inside. So you basically go all the way until the bearing hits that lip. I guess another thing was the automatic transmission on Volvo. They're sealed, so there should not be any oil coming out of the transmission, and you don't need to worry about adding. But with the manual transmission, there will be oil coming out, so you will need to top it up. So next we will install this bearing clamp and the bearing carrier with the 2 bolts, and we will torque it to roughly 7 foot-pounds. So this clamp is back on. One thing to note that it has the orientation, so if you put it upside down, it will be offset from the bearing carrier. So whenever you put it in, if you didn't pay attention which way you took it off, make sure that the side of the bearing bracket, this bearing clamp and bearing carrier are aligned. Before I put the axle in the knot. In the spindle, I'll just put some anti-seize on the splines. I wouldn't say that this is the must, but I just like to do it so it doesn't seize, and next time when we need to remove it, it comes out easily. So now we can get this back, get it aligned. And now we'll need to lower the ball joint since it's holding the hub from going in. To push the ball joint down, I'll just use this pry bar in a hole and get that aligned. So now it's all in. So next we will install the ball joint nut. So if your ball joint, the inner piece is spinning while you're tightening that nut, you have two options. There is the place for Allen key, so you can put it in and hold it. Another option is you can just use a jack and push it from the bottom, and that will jam it in place, so you will be able to get it tight. So next we will get this tire rod in, and I believe this is supposed to be a lock nut. So since we have it out one time, I'll just put some thread lock, blue thread lock on it. That will just make sure that it doesn't come loose. Some of the tie rods would have cotter pin as a safety precaution, but some like this, they use lock nuts. So we'll just use some blue Loctite to make sure that it doesn't come loose. Alright, so now we will put the axle bolt, not the nut, back in, and the original one had Loctite on it, so we will use some Loctite here too. So important thing here is not to over tighten it. And the torque for this is 26 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. So we have the torque wrench set to 26. So we will just back this up. Actually, backing up to be at 12 o'clock. So now 90 degrees will be 3 o'clock. And that's quite tight. So at this point, anything related to the axle is done. I will still need to replace this swivel link. We'll need to put the fender liner in and put the wheel back on. Put 5 nuts on, torque them to 100 foot-pounds, and that will be it. Thanks for watching. Please check links in the description to the video for any tools and parts that you might need. Like and subscribe, and do it yourself.